Hello, Mr. Dhruv. Welcome to MET.
Hi, thank you.
Dhruv, this is Aditi ma'am. She's basically the person who's like orchestrated this entire sessions knowledge series with Zoom Media.
Thank
Ma'am, this is
you.
Dhruv. He's our national creative director for FoxyMoron.
Yeah. Thanks, Apurva. Apurva has been a student, Dhruv.
Oh, awesome.
I think 4 5 years back. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's
Amazing.
been a brilliant kid. But thanks a lot for making time. Yeah, we were waiting for this session. Heard
Not
so
at
much
all.
about you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I tend to let, as I do with my work, let other people's work do the talking. So I can promise you a crisp presentation, but one that will definitely have plenty of discussions around it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
I'm
we
just
have a
going
bunch of very, very enthusiastic students.
to
So
terrific.
they are from the fields of advertising, entertainment, digital marketing, journalism, and PR. We have the senior batch who's on their way out in the next 2 months. And
Great.
we have the junior batch who's just in.
Amazing. So I'm just going to present my tab. Let me know if you can see it. Can you see my tab?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to present. Are we in present mode? Can you see the full screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is this
In
video
the
playing? Can
400
you
years
hear?
since enslaved Africans were first brought to America,
Yes.
Video played, you could hear?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but it was
Yeah, we can hear.
it was echoing for me. I don't know whether it was echoing for everybody else.
I
Anyone?
will probably have to mute myself when I play the videos.
Okay. Okay.
There'll be a little juggling and jumping back and forth.
Okay. All right. Hi, Aditi ma'am.
Hi.
Excited to do the second one.
Are Janvi, you were not supposed to say ma'am. I told you only Janvi.
Oh yes, yes,
Only Aditi.
yes,
Practice, practice.
yes. I will for next time. For next time, I will get this right. We're just so tuned that when there are teachers, like you just have to call them ma'am. So we're just tuned to that. So I will remember that next time, Aditi. I will.
Hmm. Class, I want all the cameras on, please. All beautiful and handsome faces on. Everybody.
Perhaps I should bring you to our meetings as well. Get all our cameras on there too. So I'm ready to start if you would like to.
Dhruv, just 1 second. I'll just get the rest in because we told them 4:10.
Oh, that's perfect. 5 minutes is fine. That's great.
Yeah. Isha, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think we can start.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Isha Madkaikar from batch M16, and I'd like to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Dhruv Warrior, the National Creative Director at FoxyMoron, a leading agency of the Zoom Media Networks. Mr. Dhruv has executed multiple award-winning campaigns at VMLY&R Dubai and won recognition at the Cannes Lions. Prior to VMLY&R, he worked at JWT for 7 years on various campaigns across industries, which include the iconic Bleed Blue by Nike. Having worked with brands for 13 years now, his experience scales from technology, pharmaceuticals, fashion, food, alcohol, real estate, banking, and much more. In 2014, he was amongst top 30 creators under 30 in the Economic Times Hot Young Creatives. He was amongst the top 100 copywriters in the Big One report of the world in 2015. In 2019, he served as jury member at the Cannes Lions Festival of Creativity, and he won honors at the Cannes International Festival for the Betty Crocker campaign in 2021. It's great to have you here, sir. We can start with the session.
It still really throws me off when someone calls me sir. I don't see myself that way at all. So that was quite the introduction. Let me tell you a little bit about what you can expect from this presentation. You can expect a lot of talking. You're not going to find a lot of notes that you're going to walk away with, but I promise you somewhere in there will be some jewels that you could walk away with. I'm calling them jewels on my own, I must say. What I do really enjoy is creativity. I am a creative person. So I've tried to bring that into my presentation as well. I'd love for you guys to take down any questions, have a discussion. We can talk about particular pieces that might be presented as well. And that's really it. I don't ever follow a format or a style or present in any particular way. I prefer to talk, prefer to keep things casual, and that's pretty much how it's going to go. There will be an echo when I play videos, so there will be a little bit of jumping back and forth between tabs. Please excuse that. And without further ado, let's go, and I hope we are blessed by the gods of technology. All right. Great. So I hope you guys can see my screen. I'm going to go ahead, assuming that you can.
Yes.
My name is Dhruv Warrior. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. What am I going to be talking to you about? How to create successful marketing campaigns, right? Finding ways to connect brands to people. Creating a successful marketing campaign has to be the most boring presentation title ever, hands down. I'd love to start with that, right? The first tip I can bring you is, hey, I've got jokes. You see, jokes are a great way to break the ice because a good joke can set the tone of any presentation, right? And the one thing that you will find in a career in marketing, in a career in advertising, is that we do that a lot. We present a lot. Why? Because advertising and marketing is all about selling products, brands, and ideas, right? And in order to sell an idea, you've got to be able to present well. Because again, selling is key to successful marketing campaign. It begins when a campaign is a concept, right? It starts before your product. It starts before your insights, your truths, and everything, right? What comes first is selling an idea. Well, that's nice, but Dhruv, where is this going? Your presentation has got no flow, bro. And that's true. That's kind of how I am. But this is where we arrive at one of my favorite descriptions and one of my favorite stories, right? It's about describing what we do in our industry and what I do in particular and how I work. We find connections, right? We connect the seemingly unrelated in unexpected ways, right? So you find the line that's kind of sensible and kind of wild to connect two dots. So you see what I did there? I started off as a joke that talks about presentation, which comes down to selling a formula, which is a cornerstone of creating good ideas. And that's what it's all about. It's about discovering, unearthing, and finding those beautiful connections between two dots that people would never think were possible, right? We're so used to hearing about how to get from point A to point B or even to point C. But no one has ever thought about just saying from point A to point J. I mean, when you say it, kind of sounds wrong too, right? But the truth is that point A and point J, they have a connection. They're alphabets after all, right? And the fun and success behind a cool campaign or cool marketing campaigns, advertising campaigns, is actually helping people see that connection and even experience it. And that's really what a successful campaign is all about, right? It's about selling a product or a brand or a truth or pizza or shoelaces in a way that is really unexpected. And that's when your work is remembered, right? campaigns are literally the same. It's about that moment to smile about. For example, what does Seema Taparia, I'm sure you guys know about her, I'm sure you've seen her on Netflix. What does she have in common with Burger King, right? The answer is as weird as the question. The answer is Valentine's Day, right? I don't know if you guys have seen the film. I'll play it for you. Feel like that slide is being deleted. I'll play it for you at the end. Let me just crack open and crack on with that. But the truth is that we did this beautiful activation with Seema Taparia, and it was all about selling Burger King on Valentine's Day. So since that slide's dropped, bear with me for a second. I'm going to play the video for you and share another screen. There we go. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hello friends. I'm Seema Taparia from Mumbai. I'm a matchmaker. This Valentine's Day, my sincere request to all of you is break up. How long will you be in this dry relationship? And how long will you compromise on size? No size, no swag, very simple. Ultimately, my efforts are meaningless if you keep settling for less. You must find someone who fits your criteria. Relationship में प्रेम होनी चाहिए. It's very important. You want spice, taste, excitement, this, that, then buy a chest. इसलिए ये Valentine's Day ये स्वीट के छोटे बोरिंग बर्गर से break up कर लो and take the bigger, juicier, crunchier offer. Now you're far.
So that's really kind of what the story is all about, right? The funny thing about the connection between Seema Taparia, between Seema Taparia and Burger King was Valentine's Day, right? And it was really about creating that weird connection that nobody else would see. And that's what this is all about, making a connection. Because in today's world, where everything is hyper-connected, where everything's at your fingertips, where technology reduces the distance across the planet to a nanosecond, it's about finding a way to create a connection with people online. And at the end of the day, when you work for a brand or you work for a company, you have to remember that we're no longer able to talk at people or even talk to people, but we have to try and create a connection and create a conversation with them. And that's really what successful campaigns are all about, creating that connection between brands and people, right? And the truth is that in today's world, which is really, I feel, a creator's world, if you look at Instagram, you look at TikTok, look at Facebook, YouTube, look anywhere and everywhere, everything is a medium of expression to tell a story, right? So here's a little tip. It's about helping brands meet people. Because in this online world, as a brand, you have to ask for permission to be a part of a person's life. Products, campaigns, media, PR, data, technology, augmented reality, cohort, strategy, insights, UX, UI, BX, CX, all the jargon on planet communication sits in the space between those two words, brands and people. And all of those things are a medium, a canvas to connect the two people. The beauty of it is finding the weird connection and the weird way you do it, right? So let's look at these different types of strange, odd connections, right? For example, weird connections through media.
MailChimp is a creative company that gives other companies digital tools to grow in their own creative ways. So when it came time to introduce themselves to targeted audiences, they did it in their own original way. By saying hi to the world with not one, not two, but 9 uniquely engaging experiences. They were all very different, but had one thing in common. They all kinda sounded like MailChimp. And they designed a paid search campaign so that no matter which experience piqued your interest, you'd find your way back to MailChimp. First, they caught the attention of cinemagoers when they released 3 short films in theaters nationwide. Mail shrimp, jail blimp, and kale limp. Then they turned their attention to the music world. They made whale synth, a real musical instrument made entirely out of whale noises, and put together Veil Him, a musical collaboration between Dev Hynes and Brendan Cook that spawned a hit single and a sexy interactive music video. They gave nail art influencers a worldwide platform to battle for the ultimate title of Nail Champ, created hair and beauty trends like the male crimp and snail primp that were so ridiculous they actually caught on, and invented fail chips, an actual snack food made from crushed potato chips. They dropped amazing things into every part of culture, and then they waited for the right people to pick them up. Rolling Stone and Pitchfork featured Veil Him on their front pages and raved about them within hours of their release, leading to nearly 2 million streams. French Vogue, Paper Magazine, and The New Yorker couldn't get enough of the hottest hair trend, the male crimp. Whale synth hit the big time with industry insiders like experimental rock god Brian Eno. Nail Champ had an audience of over 1 million nail art fans. And then they gave away over 200,000 bags of fail chips, infiltrating foodie culture and inspiring recipes from famous chefs. You see, MailChimp knew that to reach a very specific audience, the most direct path isn't always the most obvious one. They also knew that if you made something unique enough for that audience, they'd search for it and make their way back to MailChimp, where the brand's message was clear. Doing things your way isn't really just more fun. It's good business, especially when you know how the internet works.
So, how unique that you take something as weird as people mistyping stuff in a search bar and you connect it to chips, short videos, the sound of a whale, and it all comes back to a story of a brand, right? And at the end of the day, what was that campaign? Was it PR? Was it media? Was it technology? Was it everything? Was it a cultural insight, right? The way that that campaign just expanded beautifully, drew lines between the most unexpected stuff, and actually almost gave birth to subcultures is those weird connections that we're talking about, right? And as we go through it, you'll see how you never have to be restricted in your thinking and in your approach to a campaign. You just have to remember that you have to find a very real connection. In this case, the connection was figuring out how people mistype stuff and connecting it to an all-in-one marketing platform, right? So, hang on. What an absolutely unique insight. The first time I saw this case video, I could only think of one person, that nosy auntie who always wants to know what's happening in the building, what's going on. And they use that human truth to develop businesses and communities, right? Because you might be living in a building that has an alcohol shop, and you're like, what we actually need is a pharmacy. We should have a pharmacy here. So they just crowdsource that entire operation for a neighborhood to the people to whom it matters. And they said, what do you need in your neighborhood? And that little process of voting was what served up over 3,000 online banners and resulted in a whole bunch of people applying for new businesses and taking loans from a bank. What a weird connection, right? And again, this actually can qualify as media, right? What was the media? The medium was buildings. It was a traditional media. It was outdoor, and then your media became banner ads. But the story behind that and how you arrived at it is so much more interesting, right? Hang on, why does this keep happening? Oops, excuse me. I knew the gods of technology would not smile down upon me, but that's fine. Let's move on. What other types of weird connections can we establish? So what I'm trying to do is break down this presentation into terms that we're used to hearing in the industry. And then I'd like to take you out of that, from media and technology and innovation and culture to other things. I'd really like for you to expand your thinking and see what you can do, right? Because for me, that's the essence of what makes a successful campaign.
In the 400 years since enslaved Africans were first brought to America, we've been told to go back.
Quote, they should get back on a ship and go back to Africa.
That we don't belong.
Why should you go back to Africa where you belong? Go back to Africa!
Told by elected officials.
Go back to Africa!
Told more than once every 3 minutes online. But what if we could tell a different story about what it means to go back to Africa? This is Go Back to Africa, a Pan-African tourism campaign for Black and abroad that hijacks real hate as it happens in real time on Twitter, erases the racist context, and displaces it with the positive vision of Africa through hyper-targeted ads for each of Africa's 54 countries. But we had another problem. For Black people to want to go to Africa, we need to be able to see ourselves there. And most of the people who appear in mainstream travel imagery are white. So we developed an algorithm that pulls hundreds of thousands of travel images from Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, uses Google Vision AI to find the ones likely to contain Black travelers, analyzes and tags the content, and pulls them into GoBackToAfrica.com, a first-of-its-kind socially sourced content platform of aspirational Black travel, from Algeria to Zimbabwe. This platform also becomes the foundation for a programmatic influencer marketing campaign. So if one of our millennial targets likes cuisine, adventure, and wildlife, they get a custom ad designed to help them see themselves there. We can't just erase 400 years of hate, but we can take back what it means to go back to Africa.
Imagine if you went to a client and told them that your idea for a tourism campaign is racism. What would happen there? But in essence, that's really what the story was, right? And it was such a powerful, it was such a powerful way to leverage negativity in culture, right? It was about bringing a brand or bringing tourism and making it relevant at a point of time when hate was so overpowering, and it still is. And yet somehow you find a connection to turn that hate into a message of peace and maybe exploration and wonder, right? And that's a really beautiful, weird connection that you find through culture, right? Let's Let's explore a little more.
Several people posting videos burning Nike shoes.
Nike is running straight into a political controversy.
People are so angry they're burning their own shoes.
Colin Kaepernick refused to stand during the national anthem, taking a knee to protest police brutality.
Nike revealed Colin Kaepernick as the face of its latest marketing campaign.
Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything.
Is Nike taking a risk?
I think they're taking a stand.
Tonight, the first game of the new season, and Nike is running an ad featuring Colin Kaepernick.
If people say your dreams are crazy, good. Stay that way.
Most of this country was talking about this last night at their dinner table.
And I'm never buying another Nike product again.
Nike's stock today dropping 3%.
Who's going to win this cultural showdown of standing for the anthem? We are.
Check this out. I went out today and bought me some Nikes.
Oh, yeah. I want to applaud Nike. Speak up. We're right behind you.
This thing is bigger than just the United States, and I think it resonates throughout the world.
Kaepernick asegura que es
Just do it.
Nike stock reached an all-time high last Friday. I'm gonna buy more Nikes now.
Nike's on the right side of history.
So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
So there's another story that borrows from culture, right? The real story is that it started with Colin Kaepernick, who you may or may not be familiar with, who was an NFL player, who decided that the national anthem of the United States of America didn't represent what it was supposed to. So he was the only guy who took a knee during the national anthem. As a result, his career came to a standstill. His contract was pulled by his team. He was a professional athlete who was kind of in his prime. He lost his contract. He lost his money. He pretty much lost his livelihood. People went against him. But there was one company and one brand who decided to stand with him. And that was Nike. And when Nike did, as you can see in the case video, they took a ginormous cultural bashing. People were literally burning their products. Their stock prices did drop. But they decided to stay the course. And the result was, it was one of their most successful campaigns ever. It was one of their most successful business quarters ever. And it showed that the brand believes in the power of people. And what's really interesting is that connection from sport to the connection of human spirit explored through racism is really interesting. That's another wonderful connection, because the belief behind Nike is if you have a body, you're an athlete, which in itself is so empowering. But when you take that beyond and you say that a sportsman or a person and their spirit and their belief for equality means so much more, then look at the connection the brand has made. They've stopped being a sports brand now, and now they represent something more. So that's a beautiful connection as well, right? And that's how we borrow from culture and cultural moments, creating connections that really matter. And that's really what your job is as a marketer, right? There will be so many points of time, right? We all know about in-the-moment marketing, off-the-moment marketing, reactive marketing, right? It's responding to what's happening in the world around you, that stimulus, and creating something engaging from it. But to be really successful, to be a winner, is where you find truth, where you find insight, where you find that connection that other people wouldn't necessarily see it, right? That's how we borrow from culture. So technology is always beautiful, right? Because That's kind of what it exists for, to surprise us. But let's have a look at these examples and see how far you can take it.
Brazil is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. But what makes the headlines is just the tip of the iceberg. There are 70,000 politicians in this country, and a complex justice system designed to make it impossible for citizens to see who the corrupt politicians really are. Until now. The Color of Corruption by Aklami Aki. After helping 85 million people, exposing corporations' bad services each year, Brazil's leading consumer protection company decided to expand its business to citizen rights by exposing the nation's new public enemies. The Color of Corruption is a simple plugin that makes every corrupt politician visible by highlighting their names in purple. All of their official records of accusations, investigations, and convictions have been collected and exposed in anyone's browser. To see what they gotta hide, simply mouse over their names, and all that unreachable data becomes easily available on a list. It works on every website, search engine, news portal, and social network, including the official profiles of corrupt politicians who have been using hackers to stop us. Well, that never worked out. And then, Brazil's #1 private university embraced the project. 20,000 students are being trained to track all courts and update our database daily. So now, every new act of corruption will be visible instantly. The Color of Corruption. The only way to fight corruption is to make it visible.
What an interesting use of a simple plugin, right? And kind of using it to expose corruption in your everyday life. There's so many interesting connections over there on, like multiple levels. As simple as if you have this plugin installed, you could randomly be browsing the news and there would be a purple highlight that would pop up, right? Imagine if that technology was something you could visualize, where you'd be walking down the street and if you looked at a politician over your Google glasses, you'd see their total rap sheet of corruption. It's all about pushing that limit and that boundary and that belief of how far we can go, right? What's really interesting is Brazil, almost culturally and the way that country exists, is the closest parallel I've seen to India, barring Egypt, perhaps, in the reality of life over there. And the corruption they face and the way their politicians operate and exist is very similar to things that we're confronted with every day. So to kind of take that power and put it in the hands of the people and say, you must be aware of what's happening in the world around you, regardless if you're browsing Instagram, regardless if you're reading a funny article or a comic, the moment a politician's name is going to come up in one way or the other, you're going to see a rap sheet, right? And it's about drawing that line where other people wouldn't want to.
एक किलोमीटर 1.5 किलोमीटर वो नीचे नाले में चले जाती हैं गाड़ी बड़ी बड़ी खाई है इस रोड पे
गाड़ियां जो आती हैं बेंड्स पे ओवरटेक करती हैं या स्पीड पे होती हैं एक दूसरे के साथ ब्रश हो जाती हैं तो उसमें काफी कैजुअलिटीज भी होती हैं
On the hairpin bends, nobody knows that what is coming from the other side at what speed, and if they don't know, they can't take any action depending upon that.
We created smart poles with radar technology that communicates with each other to alert drivers on both sides of the blind curve with the sound of a horn.
Humans instinctively react to sound, so it uses that concept to provide them input.
The radar on the smart poles reads the speed of the vehicles and communicates with the smart pole at the other end. They alert the drivers on both sides by honking, indicating them to slow down and cross safely.
Valuable lives जो हैं वो बचेंगी. That's going to help a lot.
I think they honestly summarize the weird connection there themselves. Roads that honk, right? It's just that little twist in logic that allows you to find a solution that can save lives, right? On a blind turn, and you know how people are when they drive on highways and they drive on these roads. People get lazy, they don't blow their horn. Some people just don't care, right? So let's take the power out of their hands and put the power on the roads, right? Again, a beautiful use of technology to flip a narrative that we're so used to hearing about. Innovation. Innovation is like a industry buzzword that never goes away and nobody can ever fully define what it is because it's all encompassing in today's world, right? But for me, you know, all of these ideas could have easily fallen under innovation, but there are some, you know, connections that you draw that really make a difference and help people's lives. And I think you'll understand when you see these two case videos that I'm about to play for you, why I've listed them down as innovation.
We wanted to create a new controller for gamers with limited mobility that felt natural for them. We reached out to different members of the accessibility community. They gave us a ton of feedback on the device itself.
My name is Ian. I'm Taylor. My name is Owen, and I am 9.5 years old.
CBS This Morning, we're revealing the top-rated Super Bowl commercials.
Starring some unforgettably charismatic young people.
We think of Microsoft as a rational product, and suddenly they're bringing this visual storytelling, making an emotional connection. That you're not going to forget that commercial for a long time.
Pretty cool commercial last night involving an 8-year-old from Renton. He has an amputated left hand.
I just wanted to say thanks to my 20,000 subscribers. I can hit the buttons just as fast as they can. Now everyone can play.
Absolutely beautiful, right? A story of inclusion. And that's really what innovation should be doing in today's world, right? You'd expect a tech giant like Microsoft to do this. But look at how far they went to find a connection, right? And look at the story they created. During the Super Bowl, they released a story about kids with physical disabilities who were not able to do something as simple as play a video game, right? Of course, you know, being born that way, having a genetic modification that causes you not to be able to participate in sports is bad enough on its own, right? We know how cruel kids can be. But by simply creating an opportunity for everyone to have a fun, inclusive video game playing experience is a connection that you wouldn't have expect someone like Microsoft to think of. Or maybe you would. And if you did, good on you. That's honestly what we should be expecting of our bigger brands, to do better for people, right? I was really fortunate because I was at Cannes in 2019 and I got to see the controller live and interact with it. It's absolutely beautiful. And they've thought through the design so well that even the box it arrives in is created so that it's easy to open, easy to tear away, easy to remove, right? Setting up the controller and playing with it, extremely easy, right? So it's all about how video games can start a movement of inclusion. What a weird connection. This piece is one of my favorite pieces, and I'll tell you a little bit, like, of all time, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it once we're done with the case video.
Hi, I'm Eldel, 32 years old. Although I have cerebral palsy, I do everything I can to conduct myself like everyone else. But in my own home, of all places, I'm surrounded with furniture crying out, cripple. I'd like to sit on a regular sofa without being afraid I won't be able to get up, to open a regular closet, or even to turn on a regular lamp.
1 in every 10 people in Israel is a disabled person. The IKEA design vision gave birth to the Disables Project. Smart hacks making IKEA's best-selling items accessible. The project was created in collaboration with 2 NGOs, Milbot and Access Israel, and started off in the IKEA store with a hackathon of product engineers and disabled people that enabled better understanding of their needs. In the end of the developing process, 13 new products were born, each solving a different accessibility issue, such as sofa elevating legs for easier ascending, lamp button enlargement, special handles for PAX closets, and more. The new products are presented in the world's first accessible living spaces in the IKEA stores. The new models are available for download from the project's website, disables.com, and 3D printing anywhere in the world. So that Eldar, Dina, Pavel, Inbal, Moshe, Tahel, and Liel can also feel comfortable in their own homes like everybody else.
Now they should come up with products that assemble themselves.
So here's a really cool story. Eldar is actually the creative who worked on this idea. He's the writer for the agency, and he came up with this idea. I know this again because it was at 2019. He came on stage, we heard him talk, and it was absolutely inspiring, right? And over here, the connection is as simple as the first frame on that case video, right? None of us would ever think twice about being able to get up from a chair or get up from a couch, to open a door, to turn on the switch of a lamp. But the truth is that there's millions and millions and millions of people around the world who suffer from cerebral palsy who can't do anything about it. So, you know, that's the connection that you make, where you take something for granted and you say, you know what, that's not the scenario for everyone else. And you find a solution and you draw a line. And what better client to do it with than IKEA? So I'm going to reach millions of people around the world and could probably change a whole lot of lives, right? So you can see how, as the presentation is like unfolding, as we explore work, that these weird connections kind of supersede everything that comes under marketing and under advertising. Whether it's about identifying who your target audience is, whether it's about figuring out which media you want to use, whether it's about deciding whether you want to go on social media, create a piece of technology, or give someone a wild gaming experience, right? At every single point of time, there's an unusual connection that you create. And that's how you create a successful campaign, right? Because the moment your idea lands upon something, everything that comes along with an idea, your marketing spend, your media spend, your PR campaign, everything around it has to support that idea. And the only way to make those ideas come to life is to stay true to those connections that you discover and find, right? And that's honestly why I said it's one of my favorite ways of describing what I do at work. I'm a writer, yes. I'm a creative director, yes. I'm an idea guy, yes. But what we really do is find a weird way to join point A to point J, right? And now we'll have a little fun. We'll start pushing the limit, see how far we can go, how far brands have gone, and how much further they can go, right? So let's explore weird connections to audiences and brands through gaming.
FIFA is the largest sporting franchise in the world. For our Xbox business, it is one of the most important launches of our year. How do you advertise for a product without even being able to show it?
Stays down, it's Bale! Well, that absolutely settles it. LB wide to Vasquez, the wise back to Asensio. LB plus B over the keeper. RB holds. Quick LB plus X, Marcelo P out for a Bayern corner.
Doing an LT plus B makes you think of FIFA.
LT com RB. Ah, boa. Ah, boa, cara. Pega a bola.
Wild. I love that idea. I'm such a massive football fan, and that idea just makes me laugh all the time. And here's the truth. For all of you people who were watching football this weekend, when Mo Salah scored that crazy goal, what did the commentator say? He said that's PlayStation football. Now, mind you, this is a campaign for Xbox. But that's what we're talking about, right? What they did was they took a truth of things that happen in a video game, right? Moves that happen in a video game. And they bridge that gap so beautifully. I don't know if you were paying attention to the commentary over there, but every time something happened in the game, they were actually calling out the controls to do that. So LB Alpha, things like that. And that was beautiful because then everyone culturally just adopted it, that Maradona goal. Beautiful. That wasn't something that Microsoft did. That was people taking over the campaign, right? So over here, gaming has drawn the weirdest line ever between the problem which started off as Microsoft couldn't talk about FIFA because somebody bought out all the rights, and they connected it to real-time culture and then connected it back to games, and it kind of took on a life of its own. But at the end of the day, Microsoft's launch for FIFA was absolutely gorgeous, right? So again, everything that happened around that, like I was saying, is a subset of finding the weird connection, right? So I guess the point I'm trying to get at is don't ever be restrained or restricted, right? And that's the joy and beauty of marketing and advertising and creating those campaigns. It's about whatever specialization you choose, there is the way that people will tell you to do it. And there's a way that you can push the limit and do it better, do it differently, and do it in a way that's memorable. In this case, you could be a part of culture, right? That's beautiful. If a marketing campaign does that, I don't think anybody's going to tell you it was not successful. So let's keep going and see how far gaming pushed the limit, right? All right. Love this.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Survival Billboard.
Pretty nervous.
I'm ready.
The pain is only temporary. Glory lasts forever.
You have the power. You can vote at survivalbillboard.com. And you voted for snow. And this is the start of the true endurance test.
I'm getting so angry at this rate.
A bit sadistic, but I like it.
Let us know what you're thinking. Keep chatting to us on Twitch.
They will be suffering from genuine fatigue at this point.
I underestimated the challenge. That's it. I'm done.
Goodness knows how they're managing it.
I'm gonna call it quits here.
They have been up there for an incredible amount of time. Our contestants have been through the elements.
I love that idea because it just flips the script, right? How many movies have you seen which is all about taking real people and controlling them like game characters? Well, let's take that and do it in real life, right? And then give the power to the people to torture these poor contestants. I got goosebumps watching that. I always do. There are beautiful human moments in there, you know, when the second last person walks over to give the winner a hug, the support that people get behind. But we're talking about successful marketing campaigns. The one thing that really stood out to me over there in the results was that the average amount of time people spend staring at a billboard is 8 seconds. And the average amount of time people spent interacting with this billboard was 8 minutes, right? And that tells you something. That's like a weird connection. You want to launch a game, and instead of doing your launch in the virtual world, you take characters from the real world, put them in a game scenario, and you're like, we're launching Tomb Raider. Wow. Like, again, look at the weird connections and the lines that were drawn. The results speak for themselves though, right? You can see that so clearly. And this is exactly what I was talking about in the previous, you know, and about the previous ideas. So now let's get a little more strange because we've come out of technology, gaming, etc., etc. I just want to present a few more things and then maybe we can get into a discussion. Right. Oh, we've got one more gaming idea. Great.
Let's now talk Fortnite, shall we? It's the newest video game craze, spreading fast among kids, college kids, even celebrities.
Fortnite has taken over the gaming world, becoming the most streamed game on Twitch ever. So when Fortnite announced a new event called Food Fight between Team Pizza and Team Burger, Wendy saw an organic weigh-in. We found out Team Burger stored their beef in freezers. And Wendy's doesn't do frozen beef. So we got on Twitch, chose a character with red hair and pigtails, dropped into the game, and instead of killing other players, we started destroying burger freezers. Again and again and again. For 9 hours straight. We also declared our mission on Twitter, inviting hundreds of thousands of gamers to Twitch to not only watch us, but join our squad and play with us. And soon other players stopped killing each other and started killing burger freezers with us.
Wendy's, dude, let's go!
Top Twitch streamers took notice.
I saw a Wendy's stream over here, dude.
Oh, you smacking the burger freezers?
This shit's lit. This kind of stuff keeps the game fresh.
News outlets were talking about it. Even Twitch posted a highlight reel of Wendy's best freezer kills. But most importantly, the game developers removed the freezers from every burger restaurant. meaning Wendy's had rid Fortnite of frozen beef forever.
Come on, that's so smart, right? Like Wendy's has one key thing they talk about, that their meat is always fresh, right? It just so happened that in Fortnite they were doing burgers versus pizzas. So Wendy's literally changed the game, right? The developers forever removed freezers from Fortnite because that's all people were doing. Instead of doing burgers versus pizza, they were running around with Wendy's. Funny story, I was at VML Wynar when this campaign came out. I got to meet the team who worked on this campaign, and our global chief creative officer, I was talking to her and she told me, she was like, I was walking through the office one day and I saw a bunch of guys sitting in front of a TV with a PlayStation. And I just asked John Cook, who is like the CEO of VML Wynar globally, it's like, what are they doing? And he's like, oh, they're playing Fortnite, right? What a cool scenario to be in. And this is what they were doing. There's one guy who just got up, he was like, so this thing's happening on Fortnite, let's create a character and let's do it. That's how this campaign was born. It wasn't planning. It wasn't years of data and research, months of data and research. There was no brief. It was a spark of, something special that happened inside. And someone was like, oh, hey, Wendy's is all about fresh meat. Let's mess up these freezers. And that's a weird connection as well, where you take a real world proposition into a virtual world where it doesn't have any place to belong. And somehow you've made that conversation go into the gaming world and give you value in real life. Those are some pretty interesting connections, or weird connections to make over there, right? There was also no special character design for this Wendy's characters. It's all part of your character design that exists within Fortnite, right? So it's literally about, just seeking out the weird and following through on it. So we've got some weird connections through food, right? This is a really interesting campaign. I also really like the way this case video is done. And so we can talk about it.
These seeds can grow healthier and tastier varieties of cereals, fruits, and vegetables, but they are illegal, as are 97% of varieties. Why? Because in Europe and almost all over the world, the official catalogue of authorized species dictates which seeds are eligible for sale and cultivation. This is the law, and any infringement is sanctioned by heavy fines. Oddly enough, almost all the authorized species belong to the agrochemical industry, hybrid and pesticide-resistant seeds developed in laboratories. A lucrative deal for them, a disaster for taste and biodiversity. To change the law, Carrefour, the French food retailer and leader in Europe, has decided to defy the law. Carrefour presents the Black Supermarket. Illegal black markets in our supermarkets to make consumers discover these illegal varieties and sell the illegal products grown from the illegal seeds, facing legal penalties. We created a campaign to show the absurdity of the law, recruiting farmers all over France to join the protest movement. Then we signed a 5-year commitment with them, creating a real sustainable network. Our petition to change the law received over 85,000 signatures. There was almost no media in France that did not speak about the black supermarket.
Le fruit défendu dans un supermarché, Carrefour se lance dans un marché interdit.
Even Carrefour's worst detractors were amazed that a big bad retailer would break the law for a good cause.
C'est un événement majeur. C'est un message politique très fort.
And finally, after 8 months of intense legal battle, in April 2018, a new law was voted, allowing farmers to grow their seeds free. After 40 years of prohibition, a big win for farmers, consumers, and biodiversity.
Incredible, right? Imagine if you went to a client and they said, so what's the idea? And you're like, well, we're going to break the law, right? Imagine, how long you'd stay in that meeting room. But that's exactly it, right? You took the biggest probably retailer in France, like supermarket, and one of the biggest in the world. And they decided it's time to change the law. It's time to take a stand because we represent more than just being a supermarket. We represent more than over consumerism, right? And even there, that narrative has so many different, agendas, or rather topics that needed to be addressed. Farmers who are suffering from big corporations, consumers who are suffering from GMO and pesticides, an archaic law. Imagine the result of your campaign is to change a law that stood for 40 years. Just take that thought and apply it to the Indian context or our Indian scenario. How many laws do we have that are 40, 50, 60-year-old that make no sense, right? So in this case, food became the medium to change a law, right? That's an incredible connection. And it had such a massive, impact, not only on France, but for Carrefour as well. So more weird, strange connections. Finance, right? Something that you'd expect to be pretty safe, doing an okay job. Not anymore.
In 2018, the United Nations released an urgent report emphasizing the need to cut carbon emissions in half by 2030 in order to avoid an irreversible climate crisis. The average consumer in Sweden causes around 10 tons of carbon emissions each year, of which 60% is linked to consumption. Later in 2018, Doconomy, a Swedish fintech, took on the challenge and launched Do, a mobile banking service for everyday climate action. The Do app is connected to a credit card that enables users to track and measure their carbon footprint from each purchase and to compensate for its impact day by day. This spring, Doconomy took its fight against climate change one step further by adding a premium credit card to its offer. But instead of introducing a premium credit card with the typical benefits that encourages further mass consumption, Doconomy did the opposite by launching Do Black, the world's first credit card with a carbon limit. Simply put, it's the first credit card ever to stop you from overspending. Not based on your available funds, but rather on the levels of CO2 emissions caused by your consumption. Do Black helps you track your climate impact and ensures that you reduce it by 50% in line with the UN 2030 recommendation.
The core purpose of Do Black is not only the ability to measure the impact of your consumption, but also bringing it to a direct halt, making it a radical tool against climate change.
For years, credit cards have put a limit on our credit. Do Black puts a limit on our impact.
I don't even need to tell you about the connections over there, right? And the lines that they've drawn. I just think it's so bold for a fintech company to tell people to spend less. I mean, that's the essence of what drives that industry forward. That's the essence of what drives credit cards forward and financial instruments. It's to get people to spend money. That's what we do in our jobs. We sell. And here we have a finance institution telling you, we're just going to stop you from spending because what you're doing is destroying the planet. That's a bold connection. And that's a strange connection. And again, probably another proposition that will get you kicked out immediately from a meeting room. But don't let that stop you. You've got to go and present these ideas, right? Let's get going. Oh, wow, it's 5:10. All right. Okay, we've only got a few more slides to go, so that's good. Right? Here we go. Weird connections through religion.
According to leading theologians, the Bible and the Quran have similar teachings. The Interreligious Council of Bosnia and Herzegovina wanted to bring these two religions closer. We created the One Book. By bringing together the teachings of both the Bible and the Quran, the One Book has 10 chapters to demonstrate how similar they are. Verses from the Bible and the Quran were printed next to each other, focusing on topics such as one God, peace, love, hope, making it clear how similar the teachings are. The One Book was launched on a primetime show on Al Jazeera Balkans to spread the message of peace to the world.
Knjiga pod nazivom One, jedno, izazov je i poziv da se zajednički odgovori na složena religijska i svjetovna pitanja.
The book was sent to influential leaders, including Pope Francis and UN Chief Antonio Guterres. Through onebookforpeace.org, you can order a physical copy, listen to the audiobook, or download the ebook. And join the conversation about how there's so much more that unites us than sets us apart.
In a time when the world is being torn apart by religion, it takes a brave person to choose a message of peace over violence sometimes, especially when it comes down to religion, right? I was very fortunate to work kind of closely with the team who did this project, very fortunate to be around the team and support them. And this was very brave considering we were talking about the Quran while we were in Dubai and in the Middle East, right? Where Sharia is present. So we had to be really aware of, these religious sentiments. Yet at the same point in time, if you look at where this campaign went, things were a lot more tense over there, where civil wars have been fought over Christianity and Islam, right? So to go and propose a message of peace over there is brave, and something that a lot of people might have said is a tough connection to make. But we went ahead and we did it. Very successful campaign. Did really well, did further iterations to this. So that's kind of the story of connections. You can find connections anywhere, but the success of your campaign depends on how you weave a story through different dimensions, right? And what are those dimensions? You've seen them all. I've said them over and over again, right? What have we learned? Weird connections are key to creating beautiful campaigns and bringing ideas to life. The beauty of advertising and marketing is to push the boundaries of the box presented to us, right? And the box we're presented with are budgetary restraints, cultural restraints, marketing restraints, restraints from the client, color restraints, the logo's too small, the color is wrong, this word is not nice, I don't like the way you talk. These are all boxes that we're put in. But how far you can expand that box, right, is how far you can create a different connection. And it's very strongly linked to the success of your campaign, right? And as I said earlier, media, PR, social networks, technologies, stunts, innovations, truths, insights, data and research, these are all just canvases to enable you to create ideas which make your brands relevant to culture, life, and most importantly, to people, right? Which goes back to what I was saying at the start. The most important thing between finding these weird connections is to draw that line between brands and people. And in between, we have a beautiful mess and beautiful restrictions that we can play around with and explore. Which brings us to the end. Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, any comments, let's have a chat.
Any?
Go ahead.
Hi. So, when you showed all these campaigns, this is just like a thought, like in the real world, how feasible it is to, you know, make a campaign that challenges culture or, that speaks against, for say, what happened with Tanishq as well. Like, it became a fiasco and it didn't turn out. So, like, don't you think it's risky at times, or like, how feasible is it in the real world to do something like this?
I mean, all of these campaigns are real world campaigns, right? And that's the
Correct,
reason.
but
That's
yeah.
the reason I put these out. Like, as much as Tanishq lost because they chose to back down, they
Yeah.
could have gained, right? The best example is to see what happened with Nike. People were protesting Tanishq. People were not burning their products. People were not tearing down their stores. And it takes bravery to stand for something that you truly believe in. I think the question I'd ask you is, did Tanishq suffer more from backing out or by taking a stand? Because when you choose to do something daring that's culturally relevant to people in today's world, by suddenly taking a backseat and saying, I'm sorry, it shows that you were doing it just for the likes. You were doing it for the impressions. You were doing it because, hey, it's edgy communication, right? I don't have all the details of obviously what happened in the Tanishq campaign. There might have been a lot of pressure. There might have actually been genuine danger to store employees and things like that.
Yeah.
In which case, you have to take a tough call, right?
Correct.
But it comes down to also the fact that we're still talking about the Tanishq campaign.
Yeah.
So there has been some level of success, right?
Yeah. Correct.
But I would say be brave. That's what I would do. Because especially today, the way the world is today, right? What I've learned and what I've seen, especially in the pandemic, is that everybody, all of us, we're all more woke, and we're not willing to take
risks.
No, not risk. We're not willing to take rubbish from brands.
Yeah.
Stand for something that you believe in and communicate that and be real and be true and be authentic. And that's the one learning that's come shining through ever since COVID struck, right? And to do what Tanishq did is to really court kind of death in the eyes of the consumer, I feel. Of course, everybody totally resonates and understands why Tanishq did what they had to do and what backlash they faced. So you've got to, it's a toughie.
Yeah. All right. So thank you.
Most welcome. Go ahead, Isha.
Yes, sir. So I wanted to ask you, as a copywriter, what is the process like after you get the brief from your client? How do you exactly go about it? Like these ads that you showed were brilliant. I don't know. I mean, how does an idea like that actually come? I just don't get it.
Honestly, if you'd like to know a little bit about my process, I'm a pretty structured person. I start off with very basic things. The first thing I do is when I get a brief is to look at everything that's been done for that brief in that category, for that industry, for my client. I look at work that we've done and I look at what the competition's done. And what happens in the process of just watching all these ads, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing certain themes, right? We all know a Mentos ad now when we see it. We all know people who try to do Mentos advertising. We all know Alpine Libe ads. We all know Dimag ki batti jala de. We know when you put something in your mouth, something's going to happen with your face, right? So you start seeing these patterns. And when you decide to challenge those patterns and what's been done, is when your thinking starts getting really strange. Kind of you reach the point of frustration and you're pulling your hair out and you're probably reaching for the closest bottle of alcohol and you're like, okay, I really need a mental release to get this done, right? When you reach that pressure point, then you start pushing the limits of that box that I was talking about. And that's where those ideas come from. And it starts off from something as simple as, hey, you know what? Islam, the Quran and the Bible actually do say a lot of similar things. Why don't we show that to people? Oh, that's interesting. Should we create a new religious book? Wait, no. You're joking, right? You want to put religious teachings from two opposing religions in the same book? Yes, I do. The message is peace. right? And that's how you go. So my process really begins with that. It starts with looking at as much work, not just in India, that's been done internationally as well. And that takes a lot of staying power, a lot of concentration, because you come across a lot of bad work. But you'll start seeing patterns, and if you actively choose to do something different, you'll find a connection eventually. It's always good to have more minds working with you, bounce off ideas, you know, have kind of like a testing board so that people can say, hey, I think you're batshit crazy, you need to calm down. Or you have someone who's like, that's interesting, I think why not go for it, right? And then you start sharing the idea around, start developing on it, and look at all, then that's when you get to the brief. Look at all the different ways you can plug it in. How do I make this idea come to life on social media? How can I do a post? How can I create video content out of it? How can I add technology to it? So on and so forth. As long as you stay true to that connection and that weird idea. Does that answer your question? I hope it does.
Yes, sir. So another thing, do you like read a lot of books or you watch a lot of content? What helps in, creating that?
So as a writer, it's imperative that you read, right? Just purely because it's craft. So in order to understand different writing styles and different ways of communicating, you need to read. I read a whole bunch of stuff from technology blogs to manga, right? I read it all because there's different ways to communicate with people. There's different ways to find ideas, right? Just for example, there's this crazy manga called Biomeat, and it's all about how they created a parasite that eats junk and people can eat that parasite. So they kind of turn garbage into food which sustains humanity, but the parasite goes crazy and starts eating humanity, right? Really interesting concept over there. Something to propose, to play around with, right? So yes, I read a lot. Unfortunately, by nature of our job, we have to consume a lot of content. You need to know what's happening in the world. You need to understand trends. You need to understand people. You need to understand the market, right? So there's a lot of, and when we say content in today's world, pretty much anything is content. A blog is content. A video is content. A report from KPMG is content, right? And all of these little pieces of the puzzle, the more you consume, kind of help you see patterns where you would not see them, right? So yes, but please read. It's amazing. It builds your concentration, builds your vocabulary, exposes you to writing styles. So important. Helps your basis of communication.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Ria, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. My question was again around the Tanishq idea. It's basically because that was the most recent backlash I know of. Do you think so? Brands are not aware of this backlash coming their way, or are they like really ready to take the risk? Because I mean, how much does it actually affect their commercial business? Because people are still talking about the brand, and if brands like Tanishq at the level at which they are, or like any other brand who takes risks, if they wouldn't take risks, then who will? So, like, do you think they know of how much backlash they're looking at, or they just go in like,
No, of course. You always plan, right? Like when you're doing a campaign like that, you always plan for risk. You understand that there is going to be some sort of backlash. You can never predict human behavior, human nature. So you don't know what's going to happen. In terms of finances, it's a different story, right? Because negative comments and online hate is a different type of ROI. It's a different type of investment that you're talking about. It's about brand love, right? And India especially is like a different beast altogether, because it doesn't matter what the majority of the people think. If you irritate the wrong type of political leaders or political parties, you could land your business into hot trouble, right? The downside of that is exactly what you're talking about. Brands have, I feel, maybe they take less risks nowadays, and fairly enough, if you're talking from a purely business oriented point of view. However, I do also believe that at the same thing, what I was telling you about what's happened in the last 2 years, people are seeking out authenticity. They're seeking out brands that are real. You want a brand that's better for the environment, that's not, using child labor, that's not testing on animals, right? These are all conscious decisions every single one of us is making. And I know every single one of us is, right? Even on this call, I can see you guys nodding your head because these issues connect to you. So that's the other thing. The brand runs a risk of losing that connection with you guys. And you guys are the important ones, right? You guys are like the future of the country. So there's no real clear answer, Ria, to your question, honestly. Are brands aware of risk? Yes. Are brands becoming more risk averse? My personal opinion, yes, I do. Why? We all know the cultural and political climate. That doesn't take rocket science, right? You just need to read the newspapers, read what's going on, and you figure it out. Does it have an impact on business? It can have both a negative and a positive impact on your business. Actual terms of numbers and sales, I'm not sure so much. In terms of brand love and where it counts and being out there and spoken about, yeah, definitely, right? So
do you know of an example where a negative publicity for a brand has gotten it more commercial value?
yeah, Nike case study, right?
Right.
They went from plunging stocks to plus 7% in a quarter, right? Plus 7% on your market translates to millions and millions of dollars. Honestly, that was Nike's probably most successful quarter in a long, long time. So
Yeah, that one. Right.
yeah. And that's not to say things are any different in the political climate in the US. Yeah, they have more boundaries, they have more restrictions, they have more protection. But as you can see how they've kind of, how the right to freedom plays its part, right? On both sides of the narrative, where Nike, you're anti-national versus this is what America's all about.
Right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Harihan, go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, sir. So my question was regarding the camping or the video we saw about the Tom Raider. So my question is like, how risky is it to make something? I mean, there are certain people and they're actually risking their life. So don't you thought did any thought comes in your mind ki, this might can go wrong or there might can be backlashes from the consumer audience or the people. So how actually risk you guys take while you plan some marketing or such kind of a idea?
Look, the thing is, whenever you do one of these campaigns, there are multiple internal checks that happen. And it's never just like you start with the idea, and before the idea ever reaches the client, it's probably been discussed and discussed and discussed and discussed and run through a whole bunch of checks, right? The point is taking a risk that's going to make a difference, not just to your clients, but to culture at large, right? And that's not to say that's all the work that's happening, right? It's not all about risk. It's genuinely about making that connection, right? These campaigns that had that element of risk in them, the truth is they wanted to do something better for their communities at large, right? They either wanted to uncover corruption or they wanted to spread a message of religious peace. They wanted to talk about equality. They wanted to talk about inclusion, right? And you've got to keep an eye out of what's happening in the real world and how you want to position your brand, right? It really comes down to, of course, on a more personal level, understanding your client, the people, the teams who are behind that business, right? You don't go to a traditional client and then just pitch really aggressive, risky ideas to them. That's not smart business. That's not good marketing. That's not good business sense. So you've got to, use your discretion and understand that as well, right? And it's also not about going all in for the riskiest idea. All of these ideas were done at culturally relevant moments in time, right? They were not out of place. They were not so risky where you're actually putting a brand, and you're like, if we do this, this brand will die, right? You're not doing that 50-50, could be this way, could be that way, could be terrible, could be awesome. No, it's a calculated risk where you're like, yeah, I think 60% this is going to do well. And if 60% does well, with the rest of the campaign, the way it rolls out, we can turn that 60 into 80%, right? So yeah, risk is calculated, risk is planned, risk is thought out. It's not something any marketer actively goes and chases after. We don't court risk, but that doesn't mean, you should stay away from it. Because quite honestly, if you look at the world today, saying the wrong sentence or the wrong word out in public is risky as well, right? So it's about paying attention to what's happening in the world outside and then taking that risk, which is why I said it's about finding the connection between the brand and the people. Who is your brand? Who are the people you're trying to connect with? That'll determine what kind of risk you take, right? Nike kept everything within the context of sport, right? But sport always has a bigger narrative when related to culture, right? Black Lives Matter is what this was all about, right? But they never at one point of time ever said Black Lives Matter. They took something that happened to one of their athletes and they turned it into a story and made it relevant to what was happening culturally, right? So if you look at these case studies again, you'll notice that it's planned, calculated, smart, answering a need of the hour with kind of a commercial purpose behind it. Look at the Carrefour case study. Same story, right? Yes, they know they could have got into a lot of trouble, but they also knew that they had some kind of standing within France, being as big as they are, right? And they were going after something that they felt, yeah, okay, I don't think everybody in our government is so crazy where they're going to shut us down because we want democratic treatment of farmers, right? Whereas anything related to farmers in India right now is asking for trouble, right? So it's about using that kind of common sense, understanding what's happening in the world, finding your risk balance over there. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hi, so if I may ask a question. First of all, I'd like to say I'd really like the entire session. It was very informative and pretty interesting. So I just wanted to ask, like from all the campaigns that we saw, and we saw that a lot of campaigns, a lot of brands used, a lot of innovative ideas. Like if we take Fortnite, for example, that was something that was already existing. And even like, when you notice a lot of the European brands or American brands only opt for such stuff, and Indian brands haven't yet reached that level. Is what I feel. And even if a lot of if a lot of companies do opt for marketing part of it as well, it's like the roads that honk was like a more of a CSR activity from as far as I remember that campaign. And even if you see the equal packaging that came out from McDonald's for their this thing. So I mean, so is it like the brands are not willing to opt for a more creative way, or are they opting for a more traditional way of marketing? And my second part of question is that so over the years also, because marketing is changing so dynamically, what do you think where India comes in when we talk about experimental marketing? Because I think the most iconic one that I remember is when IKEA launched in Hyderabad and they had a whole rickshaw ride with AR and VR technology. So these are like two of the questions that I had.
So in terms of advertising, especially in the digital world, I think you need to like kind of peel back a little bit and look at everything that makes successful digital advertising, right? When it comes down to data analysis, media marketing, influencer marketing, look at the work that Netflix is doing. The stuff that India is doing is miles ahead of, I feel, 90% of the world. The amount of content that's going out from India is crazy, right? The way brands have just adopted augmented reality filters is like it's expected, right? And it's so normal for us that we don't feel it's innovative. But the fact of the matter is there's 90% of the world that hasn't even got to the point where something like this, well, 90% is just me saying it, but there's a big chunk of the world where they haven't gotten to this point where this level of integration and advertising is just a given, right? I'll give you a great example of beautiful marketing innovation that I love, something that happened 2017, 2018, 2016, right? Are you familiar with INS Vikrant?
Yes.
Right? So what happened over there? INS Vikrant got scrapped. And what happened was they took all of that scrap metal and they built a beautiful line of motorbikes out of it. Right? Now, if that's not an example of amazing technological integration, I don't know what is. Right? You got Microsoft who's building controllers. You got an entire factory line that's turned scrap metal into rideable commuter vehicles, right? So sometimes you got to look past the bells and whistles and look at what's happening in India, which is why I say, there's so much innovation that happens in India that we just take it for granted, right? There's so many cool podcasts, so many cool shows, so many cool cultural conversations that happen that we just say, oh yeah, this is India, this is what it's like, right? And you go to other parts of the world and you kind of realize that India is this rich, cultural, vibrant, amazing melting pot where crazy stuff is happening, right? So that I think that was your first question. Second question was related to, do brands want to do it? Yes, most definitely. Especially given, like the pandemic has just shifted everybody into an online technological digital space. This is what people are chasing after. We handle a whole bunch of electric vehicle clients who don't refer to themselves as EVs. What they call themselves are technology solutions, because what they're trying to do is create a way to make your life easier. And their scooter, their electric bike, is one part of the entire journey. They want to give you a mapping system that helps you get from point A to point B. They want to give you an app that gives you direct access to a technologist when you're broken down. They want to be able to, say, hey, on your phone, I put a security system so you can walk away. Each one of those things, if you think about it, is a serious amount of technological development that's required to take a map system, put it on a bike, make sure that it tracks perfectly, is coordinated with APIs, takes you from point A to point B. And
Hi, hello. Hi, listen, Dhruv's talk is still on. But tell me now. 1 second. It's still on.
Janvi?
Do you want to message me?
Do you want me to call you after?
Yeah, or I'll call you if that's fine.
Janvi.
Yeah, see, Apurva's messaging me. Okay, let me call you. I'll call you.
Isha, I think you can just mute her, right? Do you not have that option?
No, I don't.
So, yeah, as I was saying, right? Each one of these things is a layer of technology. You know how difficult app development is. And that's just one leg of the journey of what we take for granted, right? Ather bikes, Ola EVs, Tata Nexon. There's a huge amount of technology and development that's going in there. And you rely on agencies, digital agencies and marketers to help you not only develop, in some cases, those technologies, develop backend systems that support them, develop websites that make it easier to navigate, help with UX and UI, help create apps that are easy to run. And just India being India, right? Because it's a dime a dozen, we're like, hey, that's easy.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sir, is there like any website or a blog where we can read your like copies or something, or maybe you can just send it across? Like,
you want to read my copy in particular?
Yeah. Yes.
I have a very ancient Behance profile that doesn't have much of my writing on it, to be honest. It's got a whole bunch of ideas with weird connections. A lot of my writing, my pure writing, is it's on a lot of ads in a lot of different places. I never honestly saved it. But I'd be happy to find writing samples and send them across to you.
That would be great, sir. Thank you
And
so
like I
much.
started, right? It feels like 99% of my writing goes into presentations. Do we have any more questions?
Guys, do you all have any questions? Okay, so I guess.
Thank you all for your time. I had fun. Hope you guys had fun.
Thank you, sir. We saw some amazing ads. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome, guys. I just leave you with two things that have really stuck with me and kind of guided me. One is stay hungry, right? Just no matter what people tell you, stay hungry. Challenge the convention, challenge those boxes, find the connections, go for it. It's fine, right? It's fine. You fall down, you fail, it's fine. Stay hungry. Number two, one of my favorite sayings: death is certain, sucking is optional. That's it.
Yeah. Sir, so thank you so much for sparing time for us. Your achievements are absolutely inspiring, and we are indeed fortunate to have had this brilliant and insightful session with you. I'm sure everyone has learned a lot from this session because the budding copywriter in me definitely has. Thanks a lot. We loved it. At least I did.
Really happy to hear that. Thank you, guys. All right. Have a wonderful
sir.
evening. See you
Thank
all.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Hi, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.